What's up, guys? Today I'm gonna have another pen video for you. This isn't gonna be a review by any means. It's more gonna be an initial impressions video because I just got this pen and actually another pen off to the side in the mail today. And as you can see from the box, this is a Levenger pen. Levenger, obviously, they kind of market themselves as a luxury goods like retailer, and you know, they have brick and mortar stores in a few major cities as well as an online presence. I think they've made a variety of different pens throughout their lifetime, or at least sold a variety of pens under their own Levenger brand. You know, I'm pretty sure they don't actually make the pens themselves. And the two pens I have here in this box and off to the side, if you're familiar with Levenger, this is from their True Writer series. This pen that's actually in the box, the pen that's in the box I got brand new. I actually got this as a gift. I'll just open it. Well, you know, here's the box. It's actually a pretty nice box. It has like a, I don't know, it's a very nice gift box, I guess, which works out because, you know, I will be gifting this as a pen, this purple one anyway. So you get standard booklet with, you know, explaining the pen parts and all that stuff. We'll throw it off to the side. Apparently when you buy this pen new, you also get a Levenger converter, which is actually quite smooth. And if I remember correctly, you should be able to take these apart to service. I think I think that you just pull this metal collar off, and then the piston mechanism comes out. And it also comes with a international cartridge. I'm not really sure what color ink in it is in it. Probably black. So anyway, that's the box. Pretty nice. You know, not the most ornate box I've ever seen, but you know, relatively high quality. Definitely nice for gift giving. And I'll just put that off to the side. So here are the two pens. This one is their Purple Majesty. I think that's what they call it. And this is their Kyoto finish. Both very gorgeous pens in kind of different ways. In terms of the size, it's actually quite similar to a M600 in size. I had actually seen reviews where people were comparing it to like an M400 size, which in my mind didn't really seem right. And actually over here I have not an M400, but I actually have a Pelikan 400 Tortoise, which I believe should be very similar in size to the current production M400, and you can see obviously the 400 is much smaller than the Levenger True Writers, and you know, obviously compared to the M600. So looking at the two pens when capped, basically the Levenger is a slightly taller when capped, and when uncapped they are pretty much around the same length. The section is shaped a little differently. Oh, you can't see, it's not in frame. Section is shaped a little differently, but the girth of the pens are very similar in terms of the section width. Towards the middle of the pen, the Levenger feels a little thicker, but not really by that much. And it's mainly because you can see between the section and the threads, there's a slight step up into the body, versus obviously with the Pelikan, it's actually pretty smooth from where the threads are on the section. These pens are made out of acrylic, and you know, they're acrylic in gorgeous colors. I'm not as big of a fan as this purple one. I mainly got it because the friend who I'm gifting this to, he really likes purple, so I figured I'd get him a nice pen. Just kind of bring it up close. Get it to focus first. There we go. You can see, basically you can see like flakes of purple in there. Well, purple with flakes of like pearlescent lighter purple colors. It's very nice overall. And also on the two ends of the pen. Oops. The two end of come on, can't speak today. Well, on the two ends of the pen, it's going to be a little tough to focus, but you also have the same purple acrylic material in the form of jewels. On the Kyoto one, you don't have that. You actually have just like plain black acrylic on both ends for jewels. But the body of the Kyoto one is definitely a lot more striking. You know, as you can see, it's like a mix of red, like very light amber colors, and blue. Very nice overall. I actually got this mainly as kind of a dupe for the Schaefer Balance Aspen finish. You know, I had gotten the Schaefer Balance, the 90s release, and the material was also made out of acrylic, like flake acrylic, and it was just really gorgeous. And one of the limited edition ones was one in the form called Aspen, and it was very similar to this. The pattern was a little different, I think, but you kind of have like the same similar colorations, which I think just looks really nice. This one, I almost called Aspen. This Kyoto one comes with a medium nib. Like I said, it is used, although very lightly. It's in relatively good condition. The nib I took a look at already. It's a little bit out of alignment. So this is definitely gonna have to get tuned before I do any writing with it. And I mean, honestly, I'm not sure I'm gonna keep the medium nib. I may either buy a spare fine nib from Levenger and swap it out, because these nibs are user replaceable. You know, you could buy a new nib unit. I think they use like Schmidt nib units. I think that they're also made by Bach. I'm not really sure. This looks very much like a Bach nib. And basically you take the converter off, you see it's dirty, and this should just unscrew right out. There we go. So you can see it's basically in a nib unit. And you know, you can buy spare nib units from Levenger and swap them out between fine, medium, broad, and I believe for a little bit, for like a few extra dollars, you can also get a stub. Like I said, I've already checked the time alignment on this, and I'm gonna have to adjust it before I even bother writing with it, because I already know it's gonna write kind of scratchy. Not to say that's how it came from the Levenger factory that way, because it is used. I can't be sure what the previous owner has done with this pen. In terms of the looks of the pen, you know, very simple silver trim. There's a band here that says Levenger, just Levenger right across it, with a pretty decent clip, pretty springy. One thing that I noticed as soon as I got this pen and started handling it is that right here at this back ring, when I run my finger across it on this side, it's relatively smooth. It doesn't catch or anyway, but actually on maybe, I'd say, a good half of this trim ring here, it actually sticks out a little more than the body of the pen. So you can actually feel, like right now my finger is basically catching along that trim cap. Not a huge deal. You can't really see it unless you look super close. I think you can see right here, it just sticks out just a little bit. From a distance, it doesn't really matter. And in terms of how the pen will write, it won't really affect it all that much. I know Levenger will sometimes sell some of their stuff either as, you know, returned items or maybe like factory seconds. I don't really know, on eBay in their Levenger outlet store. So I don't know if, you know, I got a great deal on this. I got this used for $32 when brand new. They're, I think, around $79 or $69 or $79. I don't remember the exact price. So I got this basically at like half off. But if Levenger did sell it from out of their outlet, I believe they start all their outlet items at half off of what they list and then allow the bidding to go on. On the other hand, this one that I got brand new, this one is in a fine nib. Don't have that problem with the trim ring. At least from the transition of the body to the trim ring, I don't feel any catching. If I go the other way, it feels like the trim ring is slightly smaller than the body, which is probably normal. But you know, it has the same pocket clip, silver trim, also with a cap band that says Levenger on it. The threads are actually quite nice. I'm usually not a huge fan of pens that have a step between the body and the section, but this one isn't overly huge that it really bothers me on, you know, say like the TWSBI VAC 700. That has a huge step and that kind of can get annoying, especially since I grip my pens a little higher up. The threads are not bad. They are a little bit sharp, but they're really low. They're not cut really like they're not really grooved in that much in the section. So if you had to hold the pen at the section there and you have a relatively tight grip on your pens, I don't think that'll really cause any discomfort. Personally, it's not a huge deal for me because I grip my pens relatively gently when I write with it. This one, like I said, came in a fine nib. That's just preference from what my friend would prefer to write with. I did check it briefly underneath the loop before recording this video, and the tines are actually aligned pretty close to perfect in terms of with 10 times magnification. I can't really see any difference, but obviously writing it, proof is in the pudding when I actually start to write with the pen itself. They did seem like they were really close together, so I'm not even sure, like honestly, if I were to start writing with this pen, maybe the flow will be too dry, because if the tines are too close at the tipping, what'll happen is it gets adjusted and then it'll be perfectly aligned, but as soon as I do any twisting of any kind and kind of bring the tines out of alignment, if the tines are too tight, what'll happen is they'll overlap on each other and then be permanently out of alignment until you bring it out more. And obviously your flow will suffer in your pen. It'll write too dry. So I will actually try it out. I have a bottle of Waterman's Mysterious Blue. Unfortunately with this ink, I like the color that I saw in terms of swatches, but if anyone who's ever used Waterman Mysterious Blue knows that after a while it will fade. It starts off as like a blue-black, leaning towards the blue side, and then it kind of fades into an ugly teal. So, this ink now is basically delegated to my nib tuning ink and like a testing ink. It is a very well behaved ink. It's just I don't like how the color fades for my regular writing. So I'm not gonna fill this pen up. I still have to clean this because obviously there's probably some ink residue in there or whatever. I can't really trust the previous owner to flush out the pen completely for me. But I will ink up this one. It is brand new. People suggest you rinse out pens and whatnot when you first get them. I'm not gonna bother. I actually don't even need a full converter full of ink, and I have a wet paper towel here. I'm just gonna wipe the pen off on the side of the camera and just kind of soak up any extra ink that's in the fins of the feed. That way, I get a good sense of how the pen is actually writing, whether it's writing wet or dry normally, without like the oversaturated feed that you would normally get with freshly filled pen. So we'll put that off to the side, and let me kind of move this to the side as well. This pen I believe is postable, as you can see here. It posts kind of high actually, and I generally don't use my pens posted all that often. I like to get pens that are just the right length for my hand size. You can see here there is a slight bit of wobble when it's posted. It doesn't post super deep. That's how much of the pen is posted, which I guess is like slightly more than a third of the cap length. Personally, I feel it's a little too loose, and because of all this like thick silver trim rings and stuff, it's a little cap heavy when you post it, and it does ride quite high. As you can see, it's quite awkward and it is quite back heavy. So unpost it, perfect length, at least for me. If you have longer fingers, your mileage may vary. So here we go. I'm using my standard paper, Rhodia dot pad, and actually it writes pretty smooth. Like I said, the tines were aligned properly. It definitely does write dry though. If I were to scratch it out, I mean, right off the bat, because you are writing on Rhodia, it is, if I let it dry a little bit, it doesn't write super wet. Definitely not as wet as something like, if I take my Pelikan M600, I do the same thing, let it dry even longer actually, and you can see that's definitely a lot wetter. So like I figured, because the tines are so close to each other, it is making the pen write quite dry. It's smooth but dry, and actually if I were to change the wetness a little bit, it would actually start to write a little smoother because the pen will basically be more lubricated. I'm actually gonna flex this and twist the nib to the side and see if the tines go out of alignment. Nope. Tines are still pretty much aligned. Basically what I did was I spread the tines out by putting downward pressure, and I twisted it to the side, basically to misalign the tines. So obviously if they were just too tight with each other, they would overlap. That's not the case. They came back true to their good alignment. So obviously the pressure between the two tines is pretty close to perfect. I'm probably gonna open up the tines a little bit. I think my friend would prefer a wetter writing pen. You know, his preference is like Mont Blancs and Pelicans, which notoriously have wet writing pens, wet writing nibs, I mean. So I'm probably going to tune it. And I'm actually going to do a slight regrind on this pen anyway. He kind of writes with a high angle reverse oblique. You know, he doesn't twist the pen in his hands, but he actually writes at a very high angle towards this way. So I am going to smooth it out a little bit anyway, because I feel like it could write a little smoother. I'm going to increase the wetness, kind of just not really do any grinding, but I'm just gonna kind of use the very fine micro mesh to kind of lean one, like remove a little bit of the tipping material from one side. You know, I'm not gonna really do heavy grinding on it. It's not gonna be like a italicized reversed oblique by any means, but it is gonna just give it a little bit more bias towards one side of the nib to the other, so it writes a little smoother. You know, just personally for him. So, I mean, that's about it for this video. This pen I will be giving to him. His birthday's next week, so I'm not going to have this pen for that much longer. I ordered it from Levenger. I wanted to get it, give myself adequate time to do any tuning and fine adjustment that I might have to do. This pen, on the other hand, is my personal pen, so I will probably do a more in-depth video on what happens with this pen if I encounter any other problems. Or, I mean, honestly, I've gone over a lot of the details and stuff in this video as it is. So if I don't put out a video anytime soon, I'm going to use this pen for the next few weeks. And if I don't put up a video, then you could pretty much assume that everything went pretty well with the pen. But man, it is really nice. Every time I see like really nice acrylics, it just makes me want the rest of the Sheaffer balances. You know, in my Sheaffer balance video, I had mentioned that I really wasn't a huge fan of the shape of that pen. You know, it wasn't really on my radar until I saw them in person. And once I saw that material in person, it looks so gorgeous. And I really want to get at least one in Amber Glow, one in the Aspen, which is very similar to this with blue. The Amber Glow would basically not have the blue flakes in it, but it would just have like the amber and a very dark amber and lighter colored amber flakes, and I also want to get a jade one, but those pens are getting really hard to find. Fortunately, you can still get this. In terms of the price, it's kind of a high. I don't want to necessarily say it's a high priced pen. You know, it's nearing like the $80 range, which isn't terrible, but and you know, it's coming from like a relatively well-known kind of company that makes writing accessories and sells writing accessories. So I guess it's not a terrible price, but I'll definitely have to see how the pen works out. I mean, fortunately for me, you know, it is like a really good size that I like to write with, so I don't really think it'll be an issue. And because I personally tune most of the nibs myself these days, nib performance isn't as big of a deal. But you know, looking from this, I think your general person writing with fountain pens, getting into fountain pens, they would probably not have any issues with how this nib writes. Most people would probably consider it to write very smoothly, maybe a little on the dry side, but wetness honestly is personal preference, and you can fill it with a wetter ink, you know, and it writes relatively smooth. Man, it's almost like you could see it starting to fade out and become teal. So yeah. I think, you know, if you really like the color of the material, you're not going to really find a lot of pens less than $100 that has really nice flake acrylic. So maybe give it a shot. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.